back to Jim's Jeeps. Today we're going to be looking at the 89YJ. Apparently we blew a seal on the back of the transfer case, the main seal, where the drive shaft comes out to drive the rear wheels. So we're going to take a look at that, show you some of the common symptoms of a failing seal, and then we'll go ahead and replace it. Thanks for joining us today. Okay, so here we are under the Jeep, and you can see the tail cone of the transfer case here, where the speedometer cable is coming out and so forth. And just beyond the tail cone there is a gap where the first universal joint is. This Jeep does not have a slip yoke eliminator. It's pretty stock, in fact. But you can see on the muffler casing over there, what looks like brown gunk is in fact brown gunk, and if you look up on the body, it's real shiny and so forth. So this thing has been slinging oil for a while, and I just noticed it last week. So I'm gonna pull the drain plug out, and hopefully a bunch of transmission fluid, ATF4, will come out. Otherwise we may have some issues with starving the bearings inside the transfer case of oil, in which case we're going to have to do a complete tear down of the new process 231, NP231, and I really don't feel like doing that right now. So let's see how much fluid comes out and if there's any shavings or anything inside, and we'll go from there. Okay, we got a drain pan under here, and as always you want to remove the fill before you take out the drain, because if you can't get oil back in there, it really doesn't do you any good to drain it first and then try and get the fill plug out. Okay, so both of those are cracked loose. It is a 30 millimeter on these older YJs, and it's going to make a mess because the skid plate is just enough in the way to not drain out comfortably. And so what I am going to do is get one of my handy dandy oil chute makers. Stand by. Okay, so this green thing I have here is called Formafunnel. Yes, it's a US company, so I like it. You can basically form this thing however you want. Of course, any unsuspecting piece of cardboard would work just as well. But you really don't want all that transmission fluid getting down into the transfer case, or not into the skid plate rather. It will basically just keep dripping out and make a mess everywhere you park. Of course, Jeeps probably do that anyway, so you know, your mileage might vary, kind of thing. So let's see what the fluid looks like. I already see a little bit of fluid kind of seeping out the top. So that's a good sign, actually. And we'll see what we get when we take this plug out here. Oh yeah, we have a bunch of fluid. Still looks very fresh. I wanted to drain this to see if I see any metal particles or anything, and they'll kind of come out in the top of the pan here. But so far it looks real good. I don't know if that was 2 quarts or not, so we may have been about maybe as much as a quart low, hard to say. But at least it wasn't dry, so that's a good sign for the bearings. Okay, happy with that. Let's get on with taking the drive shaft out. So looking at the Formafunnel, I stopped the last little bit coming out because The particles would usually sit in the bottom of the case, and they would come out kind of last. It kind of depends, but I just did run this around the driveway or around the block too, so if they were going to be suspended, they'd be up in the fluid too, I suppose. But here we see pretty much just pure clean fluid. In fact, I just changed this fluid last summer, and the entire Jeep has probably maybe 500 or 600 miles on it since last summer, so this looks like brand new fluid. It was synthetic ATF plus 4. Kind of a waste to drain it and refill it, but again, I wanted to take a look and see if there were any metal shavings in there or anything like that. And you know, I think it's like $8 or $9 a quart, and it takes 2 quarts, so it's, you know, not that cheap, but you know, for under 20 bucks I get a good insurance policy against what's going on. So all right, let's get the drive shaft out. All right, to get the drive shaft out, you pretty much want to take these strap bolts off the back. Differential yoke. They are 8 millimeters. So we will buzz these out. And you want to be careful, very careful with the universal joint. You don't want the caps falling off the end. So we're going to take some electrical tape and wrap it around the caps just to hold them in place while we have the drive shaft out. You don't ever want those to come out, because you may lose the orientation and the way things wear on the pinion and so forth. So when we take this out, we're going to be very careful to just gently pry this out with probably a big screwdriver behind it, and then wrap this up with tape so the caps don't come off the ends of the pinion. I think I said it already, but these are 8 millimeter bolts on the little straps that hold the pinion onto the yoke. And then once these are off, we're going to take a screwdriver. I'll show you how to do this. We're just going to very gently and carefully, while holding the 2 outer caps, pry this guy out of here. And it'll come right out. There's not much to it really. Hold the caps on with your fingers, and this entire assembly will come out the back of the transfer case and start to leak fluid everywhere. Okay, now that the drive shaft is out and you carefully held the caps on in the back, we're going to take some tape, just wrap this around so these caps don't fall off. Just like that, the caps will stay on and they can't come off. Now let's bang the seal out. Okay, this next part is going to take a little bit of patience. This may be easy, yours may be very difficult. It just kind of depends. But what you want to do is on the back end of this tail cone of the transfer case, is tap and try and get this seal out. Okay guys, I got the old seal out. Here's the technique I used. If you mush one end of it in, chances are actually the outer flange here, this piece is going to kind of break off anyway. I think it's made out of aluminum, which is fine. So mush that in a little bit just to break the circumference of it. Here's the new one. And then using the drive shaft part on the inside, stick a pry bar or a seal puller in there, and then just pry on the under side of the seal, and you should be able to work it out. Now the new one from the factory, I don't think it had any kind of sealant. There's maybe a little something on there. This is the original one. The transfer case has never been rebuilt. You just want to get some RTV on your fingers and just kind of lightly coat their inside circumference of the seal when you tap it back in. And you want to be careful too. There is a spring in here on the inside of the seal, and that one's still in there too. You want to probably pack this with a little bit of grease or something to hold that spring on the inside lip of that seal. If that comes off, your seal's not going to seal properly. So let's figure out what socket we're going to use to get around this inside rubber piece. And there's a little metal part right down inside here that we can get a socket on and just tap this thing back in. Really can't use a seal installer here because of the profile of this thing. The rubber gasket, the rubber seal part sticks out, and actually the drive shaft is in the way too. So if you have a socket, go over top, hit the inside lip of the seal, you should be in good shape. Now let's see what size that is. And the other thing we want to do in here is make sure we didn't damage anything getting that seal out, which I don't think we did. And the tail cone here, we're going to clean out this center part, make sure there's no old sealant or anything else in there. If somebody else had already replaced yours, get that as clean as you possibly can. Again, making sure that there's a little ding right here. I think I may have done that. So I'm going to grab a piece of sandpaper and just very lightly touch up this outside of the cone here. And then we'll prepare the seal and we'll knock it back in place. There, all sanded up, nice and smooth. Okay, so what I'm doing now is just cleaning off this outer edge of the seal. of the housing for the seal. Actually, I use some Spray 9 degreaser just to get any possible contaminants off, and oil. You know, if you're going to put some RTV on there, you don't want oil to be on there too. Now the trick to this RTV stuff is you don't want a lot. Please do not put a lot on here. You really want it like almost not even known to be on there. Super tiny. In fact, you want to almost wipe all of it off. It is a little bit messy, but that's okay. Super tiny bead, not even a bead, just a hint of a coating. And then the inside, we're going to take some grease and pack around that spring, so when we bang on it, it doesn't come off the seal there. I'm just taking some grease. I'm going to work it on the inside, and you know, this is not going to hurt the transfer case at all. It's not going to pollute anything. It's not going to cause any issues. It's going to keep that spring in place, and you want to get it just between the outer ring and kind of that inner ring. Pack it in there pretty good. And by the way, this is really the technique you want to use with anything that's got an interior spring like that, to keep that spring in place. This will provide just enough surface tension that won't pop out, and it's not going to hurt a thing. Just a little bit more. All right, and then you can just kind of continue to put some on the inside here as well, just so it's not dry. Okay, so now it's ready to be installed. We got the RTV on the outside wall, and we've packed the inside spring area with grease. One other thing, I didn't have a socket big enough, but I just went to the local home improvement store and got a PVC coupling. It fits perfectly right on that inside face. So you don't want to hit on the outside face because you could end up damaging that, but right on this inside shoulder, and I don't know what size this is. Does it say? It does. It has an 1.5 inch coupling, so I think this outer side is probably closer to 2 inches, and fits right in there. And that's what we're going to use to install the seal back in that tail cone. Alright, so we're going to wipe out the inside pocket again, just in case there's anything else that got in there while we were fixing the seal. Remember, we sanded this off and smoothed it out a little bit. I think we're in good shape. I'm going to go ahead and place the seal into position. Get our install tool ready. And you want to hit this evenly. And then just double check that outer lip is firmly seated on the side of the cone. There. The seal is back in place. Now we just got to put the drive shaft back in, bolt everything back up, and we'll be good to go. Okay, we've got the drive shaft back installed in the tail cone of the transfer case, and took the tape off the bearing caps. There's little tabs in the yoke. You want to make sure the bearing caps are on the inside of that, obviously. And we'll go ahead and put the straps back on now. And so here it is, reassembled. See the new seal in there, and the sun is perfectly hitting right where you probably wouldn't want it to. Sorry about the lighting. Not a difficult job. And the rear differential straps and pinion are seated back where they belong. So, not a terrible job. Took about 30 minutes or so. You know, by the time you gather all the tools and everything like that, it's a fairly quick job. Take off the drive shaft, pop the seal out, pop the new seal in, put the drive shaft back in. Hopefully it was helpful for you today. It's a simple job. You can do it. If yours is leaking, definitely replace it as soon as you can. You don't want that transfer case to lose too much fluid. And if you can't get to it right away, make sure you're topping that thing off. You don't want those bearings in there running dry. Thanks for joining us today. If you like this video, hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks for joining Jim's Jeeps today.